And good morning again, guys. Hey, I was thinking about the girl in our story that we're reading this week, her diary about from there to here, or here to there. And I was thinking about how she spoke Spanish and she was moving to the United States where we speak English. And I was thinking how hard it was to learn English because there's so many funny rules in the English language that you're still learning too, and you've lived here your whole life. One of the funny things that happens in the English language is that sometimes we have words that mean more than one thing, don't we? And we call those multiple meaning words. They're words that are spelled the same, but they don't mean the same at all. So we have to read context clues within a sentence to help identify which way that word is being used, right? So take, for example, the word handle. Pull the handle and the door will open. So what kind of handle is that? Well, that's the kind on the door that you grab a hold of, or the kind on a pot that you put on, the handle you hold to the handle. But what about this way to use it? I have more chores than I can handle. That means something totally different, doesn't it? So if you didn't speak English and you were trying to learn the word handle, it'd be like, more chores than you can handle? I don't understand. So yeah, this is a multiple meaning word. They're spelled exactly the same, but they're used very differently. You and I understand what it means because we speak English. But if you spoke Spanish or some other language, that would be confusing. So we've got to use context clues. And sometimes you learn a new English word that you didn't know before. And so you look at these context clues around it to find out what it means. So pull the handle, the door will open. You could use context clues to say, well, this must be something on the door that I could pull to open the door. Context clues, I have more chores than I can handle. You have a lot to do. You just can't handle it so much. Can't handle it all. Here's the word pound. I'd like a pound of apples, please. That's a weight, right? We know that you can weigh things in pounds, but how about this? Use a hammer to pound in that nail. Would you use a hammer to weigh a nail? No, but you pound in a nail, you would hit it with the hammer, wouldn't you? So here's another example. If you're trying to learn English and you speak Spanish, the word pounds can be confusing because it's used different ways. I have to look at context clues. A pound of apples. Well, what if somebody took a hammer and pounded those apples? You wouldn't want them anymore, would you? So you have to know this is a weight. To pound in that nail. Okay, yeah, just hit it. So what do you do to a nail with a hammer? You hit it. So those context clues help us figure out what this means. Okay. All right, so think about those words. I used to bag groceries at Food City, and I learned a new word when I was in high school because there was an older lady who came through my line, and back then we would bag the groceries in plastic bags or paper bags. They might still do that. I don't see many paper bags anymore. And so this lady came to me and she said, I want you to poke my groceries in a paper bag, or put them in a paper poke, I think she said. And I said, what? Poke? She said, poke them in the paper bag. Well, a poke is another word for a bag. Have you ever heard of that? So I thought she wanted me to boop, boop, poke her groceries. And so she'd have probably hit me if I did that. But she wanted me to put them in a paper bag, a paper poke. She called it a bag, a poke. I had never heard of that before. So English is a fun language to learn, new words to learn all the time. And we're learning some new words this week with our vocabulary. Let's just review them real quick because you're going to be reading the story by yourself today. So burst, if you feel like you're going to burst, you have a great energy you want to use up. After you won the contest, you burst with happiness. Opportunities, in the story, they were trying to convince the daughter that writes in the diary that she's going to have a lot of opportunities to make something good happen in her new home. Take advantage of any opportunities you're given to travel. Immigration. Remember, immigration is people moving from one country to another, and the immigration workers make sure that the people who are coming to live in the new country follow the laws about moving. Immigration officials checked our passports as we crossed the border. In the story, they checked their green cards. We're going to stay in the United States for a while. Then we had the word refugees, people who leave their countries because of war or other serious problems. In the story, they were refugees. They weren't because of war or anything dangerous. What was the reason in the story they were refugees to the United States? Dad needed a job, right? He couldn't find a job in Mexico. So they came to the United States because the problem was he didn't have a job. If you don't have a job, excuse me, you don't have any money to support your family. So that was a serious problem. So they were refugees to the United States. When they lose their homes and jobs because of a disaster, many families become refugees. And then, of course, the word amazing. If something is amazing, it's very surprising and wonderful. Like if you read an amazing book. Talk about one more thing here before you read your story. And this is something we've already talked about a lot this year, literary elements. And they're just the parts that make up the story. Of course, you've got the characters, the setting, the plot, and the events. The characters are the people, maybe the animals in the story. What do they do and think and say? What do they do? What do other characters say and think about them? So think about the characters in our story. We've got the girl who's writing in the diary. We've got her brothers. We've got her mama and papa. We've got lots of tias and tios, lots of aunts and uncles, and her grandparents. So lots of characters in this story. The setting, where and when the story takes place. Well, this story takes place at first in Mexico, doesn't it? And then part of the story is in the car as they're driving to the United States. And then that's the other setting, the United States. So this story takes place in a couple different countries. The plots have a conflict and a resolution. The conflict's the main problem the characters face. In our story, the conflict basically was this girl did not want to leave her home. She wanted to stay there instead of moving to a new place in a new country. The resolution is how the conflict or problem is solved. In our story, it's resolved pretty much. She understands that her dad was right, that she's stronger than she thought she was. And so whether she's in Mexico or the United States or wherever, she's a strong person like her dad said she was. And events are those things that happen in a story, the parts of the story, that the things that happen. They change a character. They affect the mood. They build the plot. So any of the events, from them finding out that they had to move because dad lost his job, and then moving, their brothers getting in trouble because when they were living with aunts and uncles and grandparents, all of those things are events in the story. And as you open your reading book today to page 214, I want you today to read this story aloud to somebody. I'd like you to practice reading out loud to somebody. And there's some hard Spanish words, and whoever you're reading to will understand that. Just tell them this is a Spanish word. Maybe they can help you. Let's look at the genre real quick. This is an autobiographical. What a big word. Autobiographical. Autobiographical fiction. It's based on the author's own experiences, but it may also include made-up events and characters. So we read about the author yesterday. She wrote this story, and it's kind of a story of her life, but it's not her name. The girl in the story is not her name, so it's a little bit made up, so it has to be fiction. So it's a story about her own life, but the characters in the story are made up. Authors of autobiographical, Authors of autobiographical fiction present events in sequential or chronological order. So the order, day after day after day, she tells us in her diary what's happening each day in order. Autobiographical fiction may include sensory details, figurative language. So they make us remember the sensory details. They make us feel something or hear or taste something. Figurative language, those similes, metaphors, personification. Authors of autobiographical fiction tell the story through first-person point of view. We're going to talk about point of view later this week. First person just means the narrator is the person telling the story. They're in the story. So they're using words like I and mine and me. And so it's called first person point of view. We'll look more at that later. Okay, so I'm going to keep it short today. You do have several things I want you to do for me today. Number one, you need to reread the story. Start on page 214 in your reading book and reread the story today. And then I want you to go do your diary again. Do your diary for Tuesday. And then you're going to have a vocabulary practice on those 5 vocabulary words we looked at a minute ago. You'll also have some spelling practice. We'll take the first 10 words of your spelling test and practice them today. And then you'll have some language looking at complex sentences, compound sentences and complex sentences. So take a look at the next video on the slide, understand more about compound sentences, and then practice a little bit today, okay? All right, have fun. We'll see you tomorrow.